And we are live. As you can tell, a different voice bringing us in. This is Ebontis here. Campfire is lit on this Thursday morning for the earlier riser over there in California. But for me, it's about lunchtime. Travis, how you doing, sir? Thanks for joining me this morning. Cog is
I am
otherwise occupied, so it is just the two of us today.
I am well, busy. I'm getting married in 12 days, and Dee and I decided to save all of our planning until the last minute per tradition and custom. So
Of course.
been up till like 4 or 5 a.m. every single morning. Or whatever. Night. I don't know what time is. Good times. But I'm here to talk about Destiny. The most important thing in my life.
And just games. We play other stuff too, because Destiny
True.
is only
A little
keeping
on the
us so
rocks right
occupied.
now.
Destiny's a little on the rocks. Yeah, it's a little iffy, but with regards to your wedding, what is like the biggest thing that is not like nailed down yet that you're saying 12 days. What's the big thing that's not like solid yet?
Signage.
Hmm.
I never took into account how many signs you need at a wedding. You need a lot of signs.
That actually makes sense. I mean,
Yeah. And so it was like one of those things where we were just going through logistics. We walked through the venue again recently, or one of the venues, and then we were just like, you know what we need? We need
we need
signs.
signs.
So we ordered a bunch of signs. But my fiance is extremely creative, and she constantly has new ideas all the time. She's
Oh,
like,
so you're
oh,
just moving the
let's make
goalposts all the way up to the
Let's
wedding day.
yeah, she'll like one day she'll just wake me up in the middle of the night and she'll be like, "Let's make the guests go on a scavenger hunt." It's like, "What?" So,
It's gonna be an eventful
that's
wedding,
her.
guys. I don't even know what I'm in for. I'm gonna bring.
You
I don't
don't.
know if you guys have seen Big Bang Theory. I'm gonna bring my backpack full of everything, including a bowling ball and everything else, just in case we go. Never know what's needed.
That's true.
I'm doing
It's true.
a
Be
scavenger
prepared.
hunt in San
I don't
Francisco.
know. I don't think you're actually doing a scavenger hunt,
Like,
but
we're
it's
gonna
stuff
go
like
wander
that.
around San Francisco a couple days beforehand, so that'll be fun.
That's true. I'm very excited about that part.
Yeah, looking forward to it because I can't think of. I was I lived there before fourth grade, and I don't even know what part of my time living there from like kindergarten through fourth grade that I at some point probably saw the Golden Gate Bridge. That is truly about all I remember. So San Francisco is mostly going to be
Really?
brand new to me. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, San Francisco is very much an adult city. So like Ains is in the same boat because he's like, "Oh yeah, I was born in San Francisco. I'm more native than you." Ha ha ha, but it's like, what do you remember of the city? Nothing.
Nothing.
It's like, yeah, there's no children here, so obviously you didn't, experience it, but yeah, it'll be fun to show you and some of the other people that are going to be in the city around. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, looking forward. Apparently here there's a good cookie place.
Yeah, I gotta take you to the hot cookie, dude. Gotta take you. It's legendary. Yeah, there's a few places I want to show, but I only have one day with you guys because you and Cog are leaving so soon. So,
Yeah,
uh, that should be good though.
yeah,
We're
constant
gonna have a big
expenses.
party
Yeah, that I'm looking forward to. Just kind of hanging out and having a good time. Seeing you and Cog in person, it doesn't get to happen that often. Like I got to see
for real.
Cognito recently for his like DreamHack Dallas quick visit, but now actually just kind of hanging out for a day and grabbing a bite and then celebrating you and your fiance getting married. That'll be fun.
Grabbing
Should
a
be
few bites, I hope.
yeah,
I mean, let's be honest. We're mostly just gonna be eating, right?
that's what we do here. I feel bad sometimes, like when my wife's family comes in town and feel like all we do is feed them, but that is kind of what you do. There's a lot of meals involved in the day. Keep you going. Well,
Yep.
enough random wedding talk out of the way. What have you been playing? Or can you even say what you've been playing?
Oh, I can say what I've been playing. So, I've been playing Earth Defense Force 6, which came out today in the West. It's already out. I've been playing it for about a week now. I've put at least 60 hours, probably 70 hours into the
Jeez.
game. It is 147 levels long.
How many
The
levels are you
game,
in?
I am like 70 or 80 levels
Oh
in, so I
god.
still have a lot of
You're
time to go,
halfway
like
through
way
this like
more. I'm
150
I'm
hour
I'm
game.
I'm basically halfway through the game. Yeah.
I
And
don't that sounds crazy to me.
it's very long. It's crazy. So if you've ever played an Earth Defense Force game, they're kind of like really tongue in cheek, intentionally bad. Like They have insanely stupid stories. The graphics look like they were made for a PS3. It does not hold a stable
It
frame rate,
feels like
even
it's
on high-end
gonna overstay
PCs.
its welcome with 140 levels or something.
So weirdly enough, the feedback has always been that EDF is hilarious and fun, but it makes you grind a lot, and there's not enough
Uh,
levels to grind. And so I think the feedback was just put more stuff in it, like give us more creatures, more. So I think the hardcore fans are gonna absolutely love this game. I do have some notes. It's
I'm sure.
very, dude. It's like it has some story beats where you're like, nobody's playing this for the story. You could just skip this, man. Like, uh, the Earth keeps blowing up, and
How does
every
this
time
happen more than once? Is there a time loop
you
situation
know,
going on?
I'm
There
not,
has
I'm not,
not at
I'm not
liberty
gonna
to say.
spoil the story, but let's just say that there's a story, and that every time the Earth blows up, the game goes to a white screen and it informs you that you are playing a new video game. Like the game makes you play it for like 3 hours, and then the Earth explodes, and then a white screen, and then it says Earth Defense Force 6 begins now. And I was like, okay, so that was all just like prelude, and now we're actually in the game. Makes sense. But then, like 30 hours later, the Earth blows up again, and then it says Earth Defense Force 7 begins now. And you're like,
What?
wait,
What?
is this just another video game? I'm confused. And needless to say, yeah, it gets weirder and weirder the longer you play it, and I'm still not done. But
Well, there's one game
Earth
I played
Defense Force
recently
guys,
that actually did the whole kind of new title screen thing, which I don't want to spoil it because if you haven't played it, I don't want to kind of give that one away. That I thought was at least reasonably well done. That one sounds. I don't know if I'm ever going to put 150 hours in Earth the Force 6, so at some point you're just going to have to spoil it for me, but I will be curious to see where it lands on the review scale when you're done. That's a lot of time to grind out 147 levels right before your wedding. Like, man,
yeah, the timing was
that's
pretty
not
brutal
great.
because I was originally on Sea of Thieves, and I was like, okay, that's going to be kind of intense because that's a hella long game, and I'm gonna have to replay it all. But I was like, I've got a couple weeks. But then they pulled me off of that yet again to focus on Earth Defense Force, and my first thought was, oh, cool, it'll be a nice casual review before the wedding. No, no. I actually had to look up how long it was because I was like, man, this game feels like it's going to be really long after I had been playing it for like 20 hours and I didn't feel like it was anywhere near the end. And then I Googled it because the game's already out in Japan. So you can
Ah,
find out like certain facts of it because the game's been out in Japan for like a year.
oh,
And so I Googled it like, how many levels are in Earth Defense Force 6? Japan, 147. And I was just like, shit.
yeah, that's one of those things where it's
So
almost better
long.
not to know. Just be like, it's got to end at
Yeah.
some point. It's got to end at some point.
It's
But now you
so
know how
it
far away you are.
Yeah, so it's not actually 150 hours because there's only 147 levels and every level is like 20 minutes. But the problem is sometimes you die. And then there's the other parts of like customizing your character and playing on different difficulties and trying out different character classes because there's the 4 character classes that they've had in previous games and like all these elements that just kind of like have been dragging it out longer than we expected it to last. So anyway, I've been spending a whole bunch of time playing that, and then when I'm not
Yeah.
playing that, planning a wedding and trying to get some Destiny in when I have time and all that stuff. So it's been pretty wild. And then was there we met last week, right? So I don't
Yeah.
think there's other stuff I've played or reviewed. Oh, I previewed a Souls like I think we didn't talk about
What's it
called
called?
AI Limit. It's like a
Huh.
Souls like where you play like an anime character and it has some potential. You can check out my preview
Yeah.
for that on IGN. But yeah, it's that one was that I had fun with that one. That was a cool little demo. Recommend trying out.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of there's another like anime Souls like I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Is there
Code Vein, if I remember.
Code Vein? Yeah, I don't know if Code Vein is explicitly a Souls like. I think it
Kind
has
of
some elements
action
to it, but
game, kind of
I would
like,
say
yeah.
it's more like an action game. Yeah, I played that one.
Yeah, for me, I have been playing decent amount of Once Human, put a video out over that. It's an odd game, and I'm hoping the seasonal structure kind of changes because right now it's like a 6 week season. It's kind of short because I mean it's an open
Yeah,
world MMO survival crafting everything. So the 6 week seasonal thing is a little weird. That's a Like if Diablo, you had the permanent world and you had seasonal characters, like I would understand, but they like flipped it, which is odd. But I'm actually enjoying just kind of running around, and then some of the bigger boss fights have been interesting. I feel like a year or two from now, that game with like a lot of polish and some feedback and some work into it, I think it's actually going to be a pretty solid game because even the monetization on it is not in your face. Like First Descendant, I know you played that, you reviewed it, and when you get to level 100 and you get through the campaign, you hit the wall of, oh, do you want to grind for low percent chance stuff, or do you want to pay for it? That is kind of what you're presented with pretty quickly when you get to First Descendant. This one so far has been very much not. A lot of it not. You're still able to accomplish most things. The battle pass gives you every functional piece of the battle pass is the free part. Everything in the paid for pass is cosmetic. Um, so it's been actually decently respectful with that, and there's just so many systems between the little deviations that you can collect, which are kind of like Pal Worlds or Pokemon, and they'll work in your base or they can help you with combat. And then the actual building of your base and the systems and the skill trees, and it's very deep. And then when you get into crafting and then blueprints to unlock weapons and then enhancing a blueprint and then calibrating a weapon, there's so many different ways to like upgrade stuff. There's a lot of systems in there, and it's a bit messy, I would say right now. It's not polished. I mean, certain characters are voiced and not, and your character kind of like bobs his head like he's talking and there's no voice behind it. So it's like missing some major stuff in there, but like the framework is a game that has a lot of potential. And so it's like whether you play now and experiment and have fun getting up to level 50 or jump into it later on when they take a lot of feedback and polish stuff up, I think it's a game that's going to probably land in the long term probably pretty well if it can keep people interested in it, which so far the Steam player base is actually still keeping solid numbers, which is impressive. Like it's got a better like 162,000 players right now versus like First Descendant, which is now capping closer to about 100. So it's keeping a higher concurrent, which is surprising, I think, between the two, but it
Cool.
is. So that one's been fun. I played a little bit of something that I can't talk about. I'll hear about that one later. Played another part of something that you'll hear about on my channel sometime soon. So played a couple things that I can't talk about for now, but nice to see a little bit of previews of stuff that's coming. So I'm excited about some things that are coming down the road.
Sweet.
Yeah. And then this little thing called Destiny that we log in on Tuesday and we get to see what's new in Destiny. Well, the one thing that launched that I hadn't really jumped into yet is the new hardest Grandmaster they've ever created, the Liminality Strike or whatever. And then the brief feedback that I saw in the videos was it's not the hardest strike they've ever made. So it is a Grandmaster Nightfall. There is a Tormentor boss involved, but people have found ways to cook him and stuff like that. And there are going to be some difficult parts, like don't die in the lava, otherwise you're never going to get resurrected. But it seems manageable. So I think the expectations were set a little bit high on that one, from what I've gathered. I haven't done it yet, so I have no point of reference. But from some more of the GM experts, it doesn't seem crazy, crazy difficult.
Cool.
Did you get a chance to play kind of the story battleground stuff this week? Did you jump in and
Yes, I played just the very basic brief stuff that they added this week.
so what did you get to experience this week? What, the new battleground?
Uh, the battleground. Yep. This I talked to some NPCs. Honestly, I don't really remember a lot about the story this week.
Not a lot happened this week.
There you go.
Generally, I think we had the initial part of the story where I think we saw the battleground. I think that might have been first. Can't remember though, because
Uh,
we're going deeper into
are
Venus. That
you talking about Act 2
Act 2,
specifically?
yeah, just like this week
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. We went
Yeah, so
yeah, go
last
ahead.
week was God, I can't remember what last week was either. Last week was we went and did a battleground, and then I think we just talked to Failsafe,
Yep.
and then we heard a monologue from Saint about his doubts.
Yep.
Today this week we did a battleground, and then
We rescued a
collected a
frog. We
plant.
collected a frog.
That's right.
We
That's
got the
right. Yeah,
froggy,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Captain Jacobson or something.
That's right. Yeah,
And I,
yeah.
like
The frog.
failsafe is, I
How
think,
can I forget?
one of the things saving the season because she's like Captain Jacobson will be his title, but is only a name only. He will have no authoritative power. And I just like I love failsafe what they're doing with her in the dialogue this season. Who
Mhm.
the writing for failsafe is spot on. I got to give him credit for that because she's been a nice little comic relief for everything that we've been doing throughout the season. But yeah, it's find the frog, and then we find like radiolaria, and then we're able to like kind of put the radiolaria little nano trackers into the radiolaria stream and follow it deeper into the planet. What am I thinking? Not Nessus. So we're trying to go deeper into Nessus, and I think that's where the third battleground comes in. And then we kind of went as far as we could, fought whatever like boss was down there, but then we kind of ran out. And we get to the end of this week, and we get no further information with regards to the conductor. Now, I think there was a moment where I think Saint had a little bit of a revelation that he's got a that Osiris like really loves him, and like whether he's unsure about him or not, he can't take away his love from Osiris because he needs that. I think that's kind of one of the pieces I gathered. Um,
They did have a little detail last week. I don't think we talked about where apparently our saint and our saint didn't have the same memory history with
yeah,
Osiris
it
as the
was kind of the
previous
way
saint.
they like the way they said they loved each other the first
The
time.
way
I
they
think Cog
met.
mentioned
Yeah,
it
I remember
last
seeing
week.
before.
Yeah,
Oh, did he? Okay,
he
okay,
might
yeah.
have, but yeah, like that was one thing where it was a very specific piece of information that he's like, "How did I tell you the first time?" It's like, "No, you tell me." And he's like, "It wasn't the same for me." And I remember, yeah, Cog talking about that last time a little bit. But yeah, it's like, I mean, he's unsure, the most like awesome guy over the commentary during like trials matches and stuff like that is the one of the most unsure points about himself he's probably ever been, I think, right now. So it's just weird to see him that way. Osiris didn't have really any involvement this week. I feel like it was just a little bit of failsafe, rescuing Captain
Yeah.
Jacobson, trying to track down the conductor a little bit more. Didn't have any success or anything new. And there's a lot of running around and doing a lot of star chores this week, going to different destinations on Nessus and then gathering materials. And then if you do you're able to finally focus the two new weapons if you do the NES 005 like material thing. If you go through that quest,
Mhm.
which is more Nessus star chores, and then go collect the things in here, and it's just all of these kind of random objectives that you're going through, and they're all just do the seasonal activities or go to Nessus. That is pretty much this entire season so far has been a lot of that. Like when we got not the extraction thing, but what's the timed activity? Enigma protocol, I think. Is that
Oh,
right?
something protocol, but yeah, the
Yeah.
one that you and I did together
Yeah.
with Rainbow Road.
Yeah. That was actually like that felt kind of fresh and unique a little bit. Most everything else so far, I mean, the battle that's the weird thing we were talking about last week too, is like the battlegrounds, like we got a third battleground. They're not not a small thing to put in the game, and this one had actually small spoiler warning, but not really. It was Antioptes, like instead of Panoptes from Curse of Osiris, we actually got the Curse of Osiris. I think it was like that boss model, kind of. Not with the big hands, but a little smaller version of it. Um, or it was from the strike, and I can't remember which boss it was, but it was the one that kind of rotates around the outside of the boss arena, very similar to that old strike we used to
Oh,
have
yeah,
on
yeah.
Mercury. It looked very similar to that one, kind of at the end, and then you were able to stand on a certain like platform, lock it in place, get a damage buff, and first team I did it with did really well. And then later in the day, when I did it one more time to work on the NES quest or whatever it was, the group I got the second time struggled a lot more with DPS. I was like, oh, you guys aren't doing this quite as quickly. So we had to rotate around. We rotated like a quarter of the room, and that boss was done the first time through. Second time through, I swear I almost made a full lap. It was, I could see some it's going to be very important to nuke that boss quickly. Otherwise, that room's going to get a little annoying. And I kind of like those for like activities. Like it's not a bad strike, basically, is what I call them. I mean, they're battlegrounds, but they're strikes. But it's not a bad strike. But
Well,
is there anything else for
they're
me to do?
I actually think they are bad strikes. Like, they're a lot less developed than normal strikes, right? They're shorter, they usually reuse old areas. All the bosses are just, like, clones of existing minions that are slightly larger and have a name,
I mean, that's
whereas,
a
like,
lot
strikes
of.
are Yeah, but usually strikes are a little more bespoke, right? Like, they'll introduce, the first light-bearing hive as a boss, or, like, what was the one we
Well,
got?
like Proving Grounds was was the new strike when we got the one in the tank. Like that started on
Yeah,
Nessus, but then you went in the tank. That one felt right. But I mean, again, the boss in Proving Grounds is still just a big cabal. Um,
yes.
The
Yeah.
inverted spire with the big drill and the big giant minotaur in the end, like, a cool iconic kind of strike for Destiny 2, but again, still big bosses. But I feel like the set pieces, I would say, in strikes, I will agree with you. The set pieces I feel like are a little more memorable. If you ask me for a set piece in a battleground, I don't know if I could tell you much of one. But if you could ask me a set piece in a strike, I could probably pull a few more out, I think.
Sweet.
Somebody said they were confused about the Saint storyline. Is he from a simulation or is he from an ultimate universe? Honestly, I think that's kind of the question right now is we don't know kind of exactly where he was pulled from. If he was pulled from a simulation, if he was real in another universe.
I think
We
he was
also
real in another universe for sure.
yeah. Well, we
Because I
also got a
assume that
tease
there's
at
a
the
lot of
end.
mm,
A lot of what?
what?
Oh, I was gonna say I
Oh,
was
I
gonna
was, I
let
was
you finish your sentence, and then I was gonna get to
okay.
what
Yeah,
else.
I was saying I'm assuming that there's a lot of realities out there where Saint ended up getting lost in time, right? And so I think the idea is that we pulled out one that wasn't our Saint or
Yeah.
whatever.
That seems reasonable to me as well. So maybe we'll get some clarification on exactly where he came from. But we got a tease in one of the little voice lines of where we might be going, and I was going to ask you if you think we actually might go there. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do not.
So there's a line between, I think it could have been failsafe or something else. It was about going to the Infinite Forest. And it was the idea
Mm,
that what we might need, because I think basically what it is we need somebody who has all of this information about the Vex. Well, the one person who has the information of the Vex, who's all of this, is we need to go back into the Infinite Forest and find the body of Saint 14 potentially, but of maybe the original one. So we might actually have to go back into the Infinite Forest. Now, I don't know if they're going to take us back in there, kind of set up just some level that looks like it's from the Infinite Forest, but we kind of pass through there. I'm not entirely sure, but it seemed like kind of a tease of something a little bigger for next week than I probably would have expected. Destiny 3
I think
confirmed? No, not at all.
Infinite Forest. I mean, that was the procedurally generated playable loading
Yep.
screens that we had to do for a while. Yeah. Well, that sucked. So if they bring it back, I'll be pretty underwhelmed.
If they bring it
Infinite
back,
Forest sucked real hard.
it had so much potential, I feel like, that was not realized because it was the idea of an infinite forest that you could have like almost a roguelike or something built in there, and it was almost in the name itself, and it never got fully used at all. Oh, that was from the conversation with Ikora. Okay, yeah. I knew I knew there was some reason. I couldn't remember who said it. Just I played through it for a couple of hours, and then I went back to whatever else I was working on. But yeah, I do feel like if they do the Infinite Forest as like part of the season and part of the mission, maybe. But I don't know how they would bring it back well. Like if it's a new activity you go into, or is there something we're doing in there? I mean, we've used the haunted forest and stuff for other seasonal activities. I don't think they would truly bring it back just for it's weird because it got mentioned, and I feel like if they drop a line like, "Hey, we might need to go back into the Infinite Forest," feels like we're gonna go back to the Infinite Forest, but then how they're gonna use it is always a bit of like, is it just gonna be the exact same thing we went in before, or are they actually gonna do something different with it? That is what I don't know. Kind of hard to tell. Perfect Paradox, have not seen that weapon yet either. I don't think that one's in the game yet. I feel like that one's time gated in some way. Maybe if we go into the Infinite Forest and we find the body of an old saint somewhere to get this Vex information we're going for, maybe on Saint's body there is a pair of Perfect Paradox and then it unlocks it. I'm spitballing here, but that actually could be a possibility since everything seems based around Saint. It feels like we're going to go find Perfect Paradox somewhere. Maybe I'm totally wrong though. Very possible.
See?
Yeah. I mean, Act 2 I mean,
And
Tassie
let's be honest.
Tassie kinda ripped him yesterday on his article.
I
Uh,
mean, as he should. Seasons are bad. This is a continuation of a long legacy of seasons being not fun. But I will say, reincorporating the Infinite Forest, an old feature from Destiny, into a seasonal content would be the most Destiny thing ever.
I mean, it
So
is,
we'll
yeah.
see it happen.
Reusing
We'll
content
see it
and
happen
assets
for
in a
sure.
seasonal venue is definitely in
Yeah.
the wheelhouse of.
And drawing from their worst expansion, Curse of Osiris.
I mean, Cog will be
That's
happy. It'll be
pretty
Osiris
Destiny.
related, so I mean, he gets to use the Osiris
Will
name.
he?
Yeah, but we'll see. Me, I'd be. I'm
Will
curious what
he?
happens next week. So we'll have an episode next week. We probably
Honestly, I
won't.
think my biggest problem with like the story part right now, I have a lot of problems with the story right now, but obviously the pacing is not great. The little like drip feeding we're getting where we get basically no details every week is kind of shitty. But really my big problem, like the big elephant in the room, is that Saint 14 is supposed to be the emotional linchpin in this season, and he's kind of a joke character. You know what I mean? It's just weird to hear his like intentionally over the top Russian voice, like trying to be dramatic, and I'm kind of not buying it. You know what I mean? Do you feel that a little bit?
I mean, I feel a little bit of that, but mine's more the fact. I mean, you have Saint and Osiris, like they are in love. They were, separated for a long time. We're finally getting to occasionally see them be together, which has been a long time coming because I feel like it took a while for them to just get a hug in.
Nice,
Um,
a
I
long
don't.
time coming. Nice.
There you go. But I mean, I feel like we were waiting because it's like, oh, he came out of the portal and Osiris is over here. And during whatever season of, forget the name of the season, it was with the Time Spire thing on Mercury, but I feel like we waited so long for them to just like get the bro hug in just by meeting each other. Now we're getting more interaction with them actually, interacting with each other and kind of having a bit of a relationship. That's where I feel like this week was a little odd on top of kind of just like the pacing and stuff, which we'll talk about. But Osiris was nowhere involved. It was just the radio message from Saint kind of on his status of things. But I feel like at this point, unless Saint's out doing something specific, him and Osiris should probably be sharing the radio call most of the time. Like they're going to leave both their names on the answering machine kind of thing because they were
So
apart for so long. I feel like they should be together most of the time.
how many more Destiny seasons until we get to see their Mass Effect style romance cutscene?
There's
When are
not
we gonna
enough
watch
there's
them?
not enough Destiny 2 for that.
When are we gonna watch them bone down? That's the real
That's not
question.
gonna happen.
Because honestly, they're not supporting the LGBT community if they're not making us watch that. Like, I'm talking extensive cutscene, 30, 40 minutes
Okay, this is not
content.
Cyberpunk, you're not getting that in Destiny. I can tell you that right now.
You
Different
don't know
audience,
that.
different game.
On
Yes, I
on a
do.
long enough timeline, look, they've
Isn't
added
this
dating
like
sim
teen
mechanics.
related isn't this a teen rated game anyway? It's not mature
It,
rated.
it's things have changed. Things changed. Might
I
be a mature
it's
rating.
that's not
Maybe,
happening.
maybe, maybe teens should be saying this. Maybe the laws will change. You know what I mean? I'm just saying they've added romance.
Somebody's calling you
Uh,
up, be like, we know who wrote the fan fiction now. Travis out there in the under his pen name taking care of the Osiris and Saint fan fiction.
yeah, my pen name is Lord Shags.
Lord Shags. My God. But that's like I will say, like the pacing this season has been a struggle. It really has for me. Cog seemed a bit more on board with kind of seeing the relationship with the two, but that
Dude,
was
he's
kind
a
of
simp.
I mean,
He can't
those are
he
his two
can't see.
characters, and I get that a little bit, but for me, I'm like, hey, it's Tuesday, it's the middle of Act Two. I feel like the middle is going to be a little lighter than the start and end, but it's like pick one of 3 weeks where you're going to have some inciting incident. But man, this week felt really Star Chory, rather empty. Um, just not a lot happened. It's like if I log, and that's kind of would be my feedback for any future season. And I think Tassie talked about this in his article. They're in a weird spot right now with seasonal content because previously we had here's a 8 week story, and you get a week of the story every single week. Now we get a 9 week story, but you get 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. You're 15 weeks later when you finally get to see the end of the story. So it's even farther and stretched out. Now, so far, I haven't seen major more motion graphics. I haven't seen any major more cinematic events. The voice messages seem to be pretty consistent. Those were there on a weekly basis for a while, and those seem to still be at about the same pace. The dialogue with Saint or with failsafe is kind of the saving grace of when I log in, because failsafe at least gives me a chuckle or two as I'm playing through some of the basic stuff. But for me, when I log in, I want something to happen. Something. And it doesn't feel like there are weeks where I feel like nothing happens. And I feel like that's I mean, it even feels like I know we're getting dialogue that we're going deeper into Nessus and we're going through this battleground to do that, but it doesn't feel that way. And I don't know if that's like something everybody feels, if it's just kind of empty, but it's like I'm doing a battleground and there's a little dialogue explaining what happens. But overall, I don't feel like I'm affecting anything in these in between weeks. And it just feels very light.
Well, I think Bungie personally has kept their promise that episodes would be different than seasons.
You think they've kept their promise that they would be different?
Yeah,
They just
totally different, unrecognizable.
and now I
It's
know now
revolution.
I know you're being sarcastic. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. I mean,
It's
they
just
said
funny. It just every time I think of that quote, it makes me laugh.
they set the
Just 'cause I'm
expectations
like,
on
"What?"
themselves, and then we have this as their first episode. It's not a
Yeah,
good, like, start of episodic content.
yeah,
However many, because I mean, we joked whether it's 3, 4, 5, however long it takes you to get ready for whatever piece is next. Maybe it is 2 years. 6 episodes is a long time to get through. What's my take on what Glad said? I mean, Acicross went over that too. It's like the idea that seasons are just or episodes are renamed seasons and we need a fresh restart. We've been saying this for a while. I mean, that's not anything too surprising because do I feel like they could use a full refresh for the game? I do feel like 7 plus now we're heading into the 8th year, whatever this is, of the game. Yeah, there's only so many weapons, so many there's only so many ways you can make Destiny 2 fresh. They're going to eventually hit away that like you either remake giant systems in the game or you make a new game. The problem with Destiny is it is very difficult to make a new Destiny while you are doing live service support and possible expansion content. How many more people does it take to build a Destiny on the side? And without taking full breaks, it's hard to do that. And I think that's the problem is they have kind of painted themselves into a corner of if they're sticking with Destiny 2, they're not doing themselves any favors with this first episode. Like if the
right.
middle one wasn't quite as good, they might be like, "Hey, maybe the third one's going to be good." But when the first episode comes off the high of Final Shape and then you hit almost like bottom out with this first episode, it's a bit rough. Like I understand the mood of people just like, "Oh, Pale Heart was great. Okay, I'm done grinding out the Pale Heart. What's the seasonal stuff?" I mean, there's somebody in my Discord right now who's just gonna wait another month and a half until the entire episode is out and just blow through all of it at once. And I'm like, that might be the way to do it. That is not a bad idea because you can get your 9 weeks of story straight away. Now, the only problem with that, I
You're gonna
worry,
hate the game.
you are not gonna have a good time because if you don't do it on a
Yeah,
weekly basis, you're like, oh,
so
go
much.
through and do the stuff on
Yeah,
Nessus. Oh, run around and do these star chores. Oh, run around and do this and this and this and this. And you're gonna like land on Nessus in the helm about 50 times in one day if you try to play through it all in one day. I'm gonna have to ask him how that experience goes when he gets there, but I'll check with him a couple months from now. I feel
yeah.
like
That
that'll
sounds
be
like the grindiest, like mind-numbing session of Destiny ever. If
yeah,
you're trying to do it all in one
that
go,
one's gonna
my
be
God,
rough, I do feel.
I'd rather play 147 levels of EDF.
And I was like, anybody listen to the podcast to be like, you guys sound kind of down on it right now. I logged in and I checked my recording. I was like, oh, my recording's like 2 hours and I am done for the week. And that was it. It was 2 hours and I am done. Because do I really care about grinding out the Nightfall? Not really a big benefit to me right now. I've got games like Once Human. I'm like level 37 in there, but there's 2 other territories. And I told you that game is kind of broken, but I'm at least having some weird fun in it. First Descendant, people are grinding more than I've ever First Ascendant cracks me up because people complain about grinding. Anybody who plays First Ascendant better never do that again because that is some of the most repetitive grinding, low percent chance stuff that I've seen in a while. I mean, it is the
That is
free
a
to play
product of it
model.
being free to play. Yeah,
Yeah, it's free to
exactly.
play, and I get that. But yeah, I was like, do I need to grind out and unlock the new rocket sidearm that's solar? Or do I just wait a week, click on my little red border from those few engrams that I've got, get my guarantee, and slowly work my way through the list over the course of this episode and next episode? and take my time and unlock them because, as we've said before, there's not much I can't accomplish with the loadouts I already have. It's really not. So new weapons for me, sadly, are getting less exciting. It's just kind of one of those things I wish they were more exciting, but one more linear fusion rifle or one more sidearm or a pulse rifle that's back to my 4-shot burst. I'm like, I enjoy them for a little bit, but it's not keeping me entertained. I really, really enjoyed Final Shape, the campaign, the story that they did, the cinematics we got to experience, the moments between the characters, and the world we got to explore. But now I'm at the other side of the spectrum again of I'm actually with you a little bit more than I thought it would be. I am getting tired of doing Star Chores right now, and that's what this week felt like pretty bad. And I'm normally not this down on it, but I looked over 2 hours and I was like, "Yep, I'm done for the week. There's so many other things I could be doing."
Yep. Feel you. Been there.
I'm kind of trying to look through chat, not crap, sorry. Um, I become a casual after the Final Shape. My son has been playing more, so taking him through all the exotic missions and dungeons has been fun. And that's kind of cool. If you are a new player, there's a decent amount of stuff to do in there right now, I can see, because there's decent views on random old videos. Like, it cracks me up so much when the exotics come through rotation, and then something like the tank exotic mission where you get the 3-wave grenade launcher. Every so often, that'll get a little blip of views on my YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, that one's back in rotation or whatever. So it's like, I know there's a good amount of stuff to do in the game, but if you have been a veteran player, right now the episodes, I would not be giving this one a good grade. And I don't know, Act 3 better be amazing to try and even pull this one through, because so far it's been a bit of a struggle. Cog would
Yeah.
be here trying to balance this out right now, but we're two Debbie
Yeah.
Downers today. I am sorry.
He would say this is the greatest storytelling because he's a
No, I don't think
simp.
he would say that.
Say, I'm sold. Feel vindicated. No. I think he would probably admit that this is kind of weak.
All I look through in chat is I look back and I see whatever you just said, and I don't know what it's a red reference to.
Oh, the one above it, the comment
Yeah.
above it.
I mean, how interesting are stories in Middle-earth after Sauron is destroyed? Yeah, well, that's probably fair. But that's the weird place we
I
are
mean,
in the game right now. That's why everybody's wondering, what is next? What is the future after these episodes? Because right now you're not selling a lot of people to, if they just bought the Final Shape and they didn't buy the annual pass, they are doing a very poor job of selling the other 2 episodes, I think, which is a problem depending on how much time they need for whatever the future is.
yeah, I would view it more as like to address Stumpy's comparison to Middle Earth after Sauron is destroyed. Um, I would say The Witness is more Sauron's master Morgoth, and now we're in the in between period before we find our Sauron, our successor to the throne of evil, if you will. And so, yeah, if you read the Silmarillion, you know there's a lot of dead space in between those two conflicts, but they can still be interesting. There's still stuff going on, and you can also set up the foreboding and forthcoming evil conflict to come. So I think that there's always potential to have more stories in a universe. I just don't think they were prepared to meet that challenge. I think they were so focused on getting their finale done that they weren't really prepared to keep this kind of ball rolling, at least at the speed that they needed to keep people engaged, which again, I'm okay with. I think it's fine to take breaks from Destiny. I'm cool just checking in one day a week for a couple hours to get a little bit of story. I
Yeah.
just wish the activities I was doing while I was there for 1 hour were more compelling, and I wish that the story that I was getting during those weekly check-ins was more substantial and meaty, which is the stuff that they promised when they said they were switching to the episode model that we are not seeing, and so I get why people are disappointed. But yeah, I mean, they have a chance to turn this around. We'll see how episode 2 goes. They're taking off half of the time gates. They're they're at least listening to player feedback and trying to rise to the challenge. So I think this season was always going to be a little weak, just given the fact that
Our
They
podcast is
probably
about to
weren't.
turn seasonal with the new
Yeah.
episodic model because we're gonna get all our
Yeah.
content on week 1, and then we'll see you guys in 6 weeks.
Talk about it. Yep. For real.
I do wonder because actually that was another thing Tassie because he was like, he's like, I don't know the best way to deliver the story. Is it 3 on and 3 off? Well, that feels kind of weird. Is it 5? Is it 1 on and then 5 off? I almost wonder if that's actually going to be. It's what everybody asked for. So when everybody is not happy about it, everybody that was like, Bungie's just gonna be like, this is what y'all wanted. This is exactly what you guys wanted to get the story, but the story has to be good. But it's like waiting to come back in 6 weeks for the next chapter of the story. It's going to be interesting to have that big of a break. I'm kind of with you. I'm not going to mind as a creator because that's why I'm trying to branch out and do other things, hence the other stuff that I'm playing. But yeah, if Destiny is your main jam, yeah, you'll have guns to grind out and you might get an exotic mission in the first time. And there will probably be seasonal events that they'll still have a little more freedom to schedule around in there. But 1 week on for the story. You know, if we got all of Act 1 right after the final shape, and then we had 5 weeks off, not much happened in Act 1 here, and then not much so far has happened in week 2, or Act 2. I hope we get more next. But if we had like all of Act 1 and Act 2 for this one all at once, it would almost I don't know if it would feel I feel like it almost would feel worse for this one. So that's why I do hope episode 2 can bring a lot more to the table. They've talked about some cool activities they're working on, like one of the biggest exotic missions they've done. That's Act 3, or that's Act 3 for this one, right? That exotic mission that's one of the biggest ones they've done. So that one's coming.
Yep.
We've got that coming, but that's going to be August 27th or something. I think. Yeah, end of August. And then episode 2, we get into like vampire hunting and Scorn, and I can see that one. Maybe it's just Vex throwing this whole thing a wrench because it's hard to tell a good Vex story, but they felt they needed to because it was overdue. It's a weird time to play Destiny though, because yeah, logging in for 2 hours and being like, yeah, I'm not gonna go grind out every weapon. I'm kind of good. I feel like I'm getting a little casual with my time in it because I see people doing some nightfalls and other stuff, but
And you're not in there at all. Yeah. I know that feeling.
you're like,
That's how
welcome to the freedom of
I
other
mean, yeah.
things.
That's kind of how I feel with like you and Cog. Like I feel like you guys are still in there like chasing seals and stuff. Or I'll talk to Teddy and see he's still doing that, and I'm like, man, I guess I'm a casual now. I'm a casual with 12,000 hours in the game, but it's like, you know, I'm like we talk about this all the time, but I'm trying to continue to like Destiny, and the
Yeah,
only way
and
for me to
that's
do
just
that
play it
is
in the time that
yeah,
my
exactly.
2 hours of doing my Nessus chores, and then it's like, if Nightfalls aren't my thing and I've got 3 other games calling my name, I'm gonna go play those other things right now, and that keeps, as you said, the relationship healthy. Do you guys think we're getting any raids or dungeons in the next year? So there is a dungeon key, or pass, I should say, with the annual pass, and if it's the way seasons worked, I would imagine episode 2, dungeon, episode 3, dungeon, and we're getting this big exotic mission with this, Act 3. As for a reprised raid, they have said nothing about it. So the best thing you can do is probably have an expectation that you're not going to get one. Because until they tell you otherwise, treat it as like not going to get it. And if we do, it's a surprise. Because at this point, our only thing we would be getting is Wrath of the Machine, Leviathan, or something like that back. And I feel like the 2 dungeons are the only thing promised and guaranteed and discussed. And until otherwise told, it is in your best interest to not expect anything else. But it does feel like okay, here's the question. So take episode 2. You got 3 acts. You get all the story at the beginning of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, so you have like 5 weeks of kind of open. There'll probably be some seasonal events that they tuck in some of those weeks and stuff like that. Where do you drop the dungeon? Just Act 1 right there in the beginning and let it exist for the entire season? Do you wait a little bit for it to come into play? Where do you put that?
Um, yeah, I think you probably wait until there's a die down of player engagement in that season
Maybe like
episode.
Act 2, maybe like that's the big kickoff
Yeah,
for Act 2 to
Act 2, or
reinvigorate or something.
maybe it's the ultimate activity at the end of Act 3 once the story's done. Make people wait for a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, right now, I don't envy Tom Farnsworth's job because he's trying to tell
Is he the
stories.
next season or this season?
I don't know which season he's on. I lost track probably a while ago. But he's one of the 2 seasonal leads, and him and whoever is managing the other seasonal team, Team Alpha, Team Omega, I think they are. between those 2 seasons. I don't envy their job right now because they're trying to tell stories that will, like, fill a season, but they're also stories that can't have any major implications, at least not yet, it feels like. Maybe when we get to act 3 and we have the Dreadnought, and if the Dreadnought has implications of where we go in the future, maybe there's something more. But when you're dealing with, like, filler seasons, it's kinda rough to write those stories. So I don't envy them in what they're trying to do right now. And we're getting things like we got 3 battlegrounds, we got Enigma Protocol, we got Breach Overload. They'll probably call that the wrong thing. And we've got multiple difficulties of those. As a content-wise, when you say and we're getting one of the biggest exotic missions that we've ever got before in Act 3, and while the story stuff hasn't, like, really moved the bar any higher for the compared to seasons, at least to me so far, we had, like, a little teaser cinematic, but not much else yet. The content that we've got within one episode actually is decent when you listen it out that way compared to seasons, because we would get, like, the deep and then, like, the short version, or we got the one with Riven, and then we got the longer version of that, like, mini kind of roguelike thing that we did. But we didn't get much else with it, and the fact that we got 3 new battlegrounds, we got Enigma protocols and 1 activity, and you've got 2 variations of that. There's not a small amount of content that we've got, but it just feels like the vehicle it's in doesn't feel great. It isn't doing it any favors, I guess. But I also don't know how to fix that. I don't know what vehicle to put new battlegrounds and new activities in that aren't seasonal content to make it feel better. Or is it just the story isn't doing it any favors right now, do you think? Where do you land on
Uh,
kind of that?
is the story doing what any favors?
Just the content. Like, we have a decent amount of content with it this episode, but
Yeah.
does it feel worse because the story is not compelling? Or do you think it's just like
I mean,
right now the
I think it's
season's
just
weird?
the quality of the content I don't think is amazing. Like, or at least maybe it's not the content itself, it's just the quests, right? Like when I have to go and like snipe 25 Vex in their crit spot and then like go and do a lost sector like 10 times and stuff like that. I'm just like, all right, man, let's let's move past this. I would honestly be more okay if we got the story beats in a more concise or compelling way, and then all that I had to do that week was log in and just play the new stuff. But having to like do the repeatable seasonal activity every week, sometimes multiple times, and then
Yeah.
grind some random like bullshit patrol bounty stuff, and then listen to somebody talk on the telephone like I do every week. It's just sort of like, all right, man, I've seen this. It also, I think, the novelty is just people have talked about this a ton, but the novelty is run real dry when you can just predict exactly what you're going to be doing every week with no surprises.
Like,
And
we're gonna
so,
log in, we're
um,
gonna get our new thing to
yeah,
investigate, then we're gonna go do the seasonal activity, whether you do the
yeah,
battlegrounds or the breach overload, you gotta make sure you get enough of the radiolaria things that you can farm,
yeah.
and you need to get
So,
enough
so I
of the
think it,
iridescent ones, yeah.
I think it's part the way they're presenting it. It's part the time gates. It's part the fact that we're all exhausted from this formula. Um, and then I think it is partly that just like the content itself, I think I'm harsher on battlegrounds than I think most people are, but you know, there's they don't really excite me too much. And then the seasonal activity, I will say, the timed seasonal activity, the Enigma Protocol or whatever it's called, I think is pretty cool though.
Yeah,
Um, it's just not something I want to have to replay every week, and luckily they don't make you replay that one every week, but
that's why you
it
still
is
like it.
just yeah, but it is still just one event, right? You play it and then you log off and you don't play it anymore. I think if Bungie can't keep with the pace of making good content and don't want to scale to do so, then they should just be okay with their players playing less and not
So if it's not
not
gonna be
not try to
quality, then don't force it kinda thing.
yeah, don't make your players not enjoy playing your game. Just like give them the good stuff, and then when there's not good stuff, tell them to wait until you've made more.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Spade said it, the hard part is just doing something new and fresh every time when this thing's been around for 8 years, like, how many different ways can you remake a Minotaur fight or, a fighting multiple Hydras in the Breach executable program or whatever, like, there's only so many ways to spin those things up and give them a little bit of variety. So I guess here's a question, would you rather have, say, the episode if they did something like the Into the Light, it was, Onslaught. If they brought one activity that was a little more repeatable, like maybe they leaned more into a roguelike for a season, or maybe so if you did have to replay the thing, there would be more variety and replayability, but you're not gonna say get 3 battlegrounds for it, you're just gonna get one thing, but maybe it's got a deeper experience to it, and maybe
Yeah,
'cause, like,
yeah.
Shattered Realm, I always really enjoyed because we had the Metroidvania kinda weekly unlocks where you got to do new things and experience a little more, and I think they mentioned that they might be heading towards, activities kind of like that, I feel, could be coming in the next episode even, or maybe it's the one after, I don't know which, but I was like, I feel like I'm with you. It's like, if you're gonna tell me it's like, "Oh, you gotta go back in and gather up more radiolaria, but it's gotta be iridescent radiolaria to drop this other random currency that satisfies this quest objective," it's not really anything that's new or fresh, it's just go run the same thing, farm the little objectives, and get some stuff from it. It just doesn't feel it does feel like you're doing all the same stuff, but if you had something that had a little more customization to it, like either the roguelike or a wave-based activity or something along those lines, they could probably do more with one activity if they specialize to give that activity more depth and variety to it. I'd be curious to try that one. Some people would hate it, I'm sure, but I don't know. We did just get a TWAB, something.
Squid, squid.
PvP Strike Team update. We are about an hour in. Um, Coming Crucible changes coming August in the August 8.0.5 update. 6v6 map weighting, improved lobby balancing, updating quitter penalty, sandbox PvP balancing, Trials Osiris, Passage of Persistent update for trios. Competitive, you've got the Clash mode, reducing the score to win, bring match times closer to a shorter line, and then Collision, improving spawn logic. Iron Banner, temporarily removing Tribute for additional improvements. People really did not enjoy that second week of Tribute from what I saw on Twitter, so that sounds about spot on, so they are listening a little bit. I'm not going to go through everything with regards to like map weighting or lobby balancing. If you want to read the details on those, you are more than welcome to. Special ammo economy, trials updates. There's a lot of PvP stuff in this TWAB. So if you are really detailed into PvP, there's going to be a lot in here for you to read. Exotic class item drop tuning update, though. This is interesting because
Great. Let's look at this.
everybody's made a video on this thing. So I didn't, but everybody else finally got to it. Final Shape introduced new exotic class items that can roll with some awesome perk combinations. Correct. This has made them highly sought after. We've seen feedback that it is currently difficult to get enough drops to target the roles that you want. To address this, we're currently targeting the following changes for early August: increasing chances for drops when opening overthrow chests. I think with those. Oh, overthrow. That's just the
Overthrow
big world
chests.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So increasing. Um, as you open chests tied to overthrow, your chances will increase. Higher tiered chests give bigger increases to drop chances, and this should decrease the amount it takes on average, the amount of time it takes on average to get an exotic class item, but we'll be watching the feedback and tuning further if necessary. Also, reducing chances from unrelated pale heart chests in free roam to encourage overthrow participation. Why would you reduce a chance from anything? I feel like just because you could maybe get it from a normal chest, or maybe one of the, like the little roll the ball into the bucket thing or shoot the grenades or whatever it is, why you would turn those down, I don't know if those are overthrow chests, but if you have a chance from any chest, don't turn it down. Increased chance stored up from overthrow chests apply to lost sectors and co-op missions that take place in the Pale Heart. Additionally, we're adding a weekly challenge to Dual Destiny. Players will be able to earn one additional exotic class item when completing this activity per week per character. Subsequent completions will function normally. So your first time you're going to get two, it sounds like. We're also aware that player feedback concerning the desire for these exotics to come with from more activities outside of the Pale Heart. Many thanks to those who've been giving feedback and will continue to monitor. Do you think that's enough? Do you think better chances from overthrow, a weekly challenge from Dual Destiny to get an additional one, and I feel like that's
I
mostly it.
already I already thought that this was not an issue that needed addressing. Every time I go and do overthrow, I get at least one, sometimes two. So I already thought people were just being whiners about this. So I think it's more than enough. I didn't even think they needed to do this, to be honest.
Do you feel like any directional type farming towards maybe like one half of the perk pool? You could pick one of the two perks if you're like, like focused farming, kind of like we got with Onslaught. Maybe if you want to go after a perk on the left side, then you're going for the random rolls on the other side. Do you feel like you should be able to direct your focusing at all? That's like the other piece of feedback I heard a little bit about.
Um, Sorry, what are we
So it's
doing
like
here?
there's two perks you can pick, and it's always trying to get the combination of what you're going for. But if you could maybe lock in a perk on one side of the class item, then maybe you could grind out for the other side with some random rolls. Do you feel like that's necessary? Do you think
Ye-
that's a reasonable request?
Nah. Hey,
Just go
look,
grind first
either
ascendant. You'll get it. You'll feel better.
yeah, either you're on my team and you think that we should never have to grind for anything because replaying activities is stupid and boring, or you're on team give us things to grind for Bungie. I suspect most players, because they're annoying, most hardcore players and most people watching the show have in the past or at some point been on team. Give me things to grind for Bungie, which I know you, Ebontis, and Cog have both been on at various points in your careers. And so to those people, I say, reap what you sow. You got what you asked for, and have fun with that grinding. I will not be doing it.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see how much this helps. I feel like if somebody gets like duplicate, like, so whether it's a knockout system or anything of that nature, like the repetition does seem to get to be a little annoying. It would be just nice to see some, because I feel like half of my exotic class items had one of the two exotic perks that was the same a lot. I do feel like I got a lot of that. So there's definitely some RNG, but yeah, if you do want one, you will be grinding. We'll see. I think this is still one of those few things they've got like the whole player base wants to grind for these things. And I think you probably are right. They're like, "Hey, you guys wanted to grind for something. We finally made something that you want to grind for. So we're going to let you keep grinding for it." I feel like I think you're probably right that they've made something that people want to get and they're not going to make it too easy for probably a long time to come.
Yep.
Oh, cuz
Have fun grinding.
you already got your roll, so you're good to go.
Yeah. Somebody
Forgot
called
about
me
that. I
out.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
You showed
I
that to
did
me too.
I did get my desired role like the first week the game was out, so I immediately oh yeah, I forgot I can ban Warren. Remember I used to ban him all the time? I don't know. Last time I banned him, he got cancer.
Yeah,
I don't
don't
think I'm
do
gonna
that.
risk it.
It's not nice.
No, I'm not. I think that there's no such thing as a coincidence, right? It's all related.
Well, either way, higher drop rates, so you'll be running Overthrow to your heart's content, or running Dual Destiny more. I mean, Dual Destiny is not bad to run if you can get like an extra one each week. Gives you a little bit of a bonus. I think right now it is just the fact that they made something people want to grind for, and they don't want to make it too easy straight away. Just because some people are grinding 100 or 200 hours for something. That's just probably where it is right
It's
now.
so funny that people constantly ask for meaningful grinds and then they get one and then they're like, "No, not like this, Bungie. Let me
There's
just
too
I
much.
want to get the loot I want right away." But
Yeah, there's too much RNG in this one.
yeah,
But then everybody complains that
I
craftable
don't think
weapons.
there is.
But then they complain about
I don't think there.
crafting being like, oh, crafting ruins the game or makes it too easy. And be like, okay, here's your non-crafting option. Go.
I don't think there's that much RNG because I mean, obviously there is a lot of randomness, but I don't think that it's like bad randomness because it's not like any of the rolls are completely useless. Like even if you get a roll that has absolutely no use right now, you can always put it in the vault and wait for the meta to change.
I mean, you're not wrong, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the last ones. The Brave Arsenal weapon attunement is coming back from like Onslaught. So during Into the Light, players could attune Brave weapons. And believe me, I played Onslaught one time and it's just like a dice roll and nobody knows what the hell they're doing in there now. It's not like when Into the Light was like the only thing to do. there was some reasonable players in there. Now, if you go try and select that thing from the Vanguard playlist, nobody knows what they're doing. People are picking trip mines as opposed to the other like things that are wasting their time and money. I did not get very far. Let's just say that. Um, but in update 8.0.5, players can visit Zavala in the tower to access a new Onslaught attunement menu. From there, players can select a single Brave Arsenal weapon they'd like to attune to, increasing the drop chance by 60% in Onslaught. An increase from the 50% chance drop rate um, from Into the Light. So it's actually, your attunement is actually a little bit stronger. It's like less 50-50. You should be seeing them even more. So if you do want to go grind
Mm.
out Hammerhead or Recluse, if you play Onslaught, you're bound to see even a little bit more of those than you were during the Into the Light segment. There's no cooldown or cost, so you can swap your chosen weapon at any time, and your selected weapon will remain attuned until you change it or deactivate the attunement. If you're chasing an elusive Brave Arsenal God roll, now is the perfect time to jump in. I'm glad this is back. This is good because I will say in the world of RNG, when you've got like 12 weapons out there and then you've got the RNG of good and bad rolls, this attunement system still gives you plenty to grind for because it's like 60-40 chance you'll get the weapon and then you've got the dice roll on the weapon. But then from there, at least you can kind of start seeing some more of that weapon. So I'm glad this is back. This makes the grind reasonable because right now, if you go into Onslaught, it is way too many dice you got to throw in the air.
It's an onslaught
It's an Onslaught.
of grinding.
Yes. But, I mean, that's what Destiny's working on becoming. They got to give you stuff to grind for.
Give me
back
things to
back
grind
from the
for,
dead.
Bungie.
I have 500 guns in my vault that are still waiting for the meta to change. Sounds like you need to clean your vault out. Coming from the guy who's also got a full vault. What else we got? Destiny art shows. I know they got the Destiny Bungie Foundation tournament finale. I think that's actually going on right now on the Bungie Foundation Twitch channel. It's the tournament for like seventh column and stuff that they're working on right now. So that one's going on. There's the Bungie rewards. If you want the Captain Jacobson pin, you're one of the pin collectors for the Bungie store, you can get the little front like four-eyed frog pin. There's a build of the week video. That's interesting. So hard to know like who made the build of the week video first, but yeah. There's also a blooper for Cade 6, which is kind of funny. Couple known issues. Yeah, that pretty well covers it. Yeah, I mean, just doing right now, I'm at the point where we are 5 weeks into the story out of 9. We are coming up on the 6th week. If we don't have some kind of interaction with the conductor next week, I am going to have some questions because they're string. At this point, you just got to. I'm not a writer, but you do need to write a little better than that at this point. If nothing happens next week, I feel. Because then we'll be 12 weeks in. No actual real story beats have happened besides the small Osiris
Yeah.
and soap opera
I
going
I
on.
th I think it's a misnomer when people say I'm not a writer when they find a story that they don't like. It's like you don't have to be a writer to understand that you are bored.
That's
You know
fair.
what
I
I
mean,
mean?
that is totally
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is. Yeah, just because
Like
I'm not
I'm
somebody who
bored
would
I
probably
am bored right now. So what do you think that tells you about your writing or your pacing?
right.
I don't even know if it's the writing. It's really just like the overlap of writing in a video game where the game has to create these artificial barriers to the story, and writing for games in particular seems like it would be really
Yeah,
difficult. So
that's fair. But yeah, maybe writing less so, but the pacing has me bored right now, and I think that's part of the issue. There's not enough going on, and if you're gonna have me log in, whether it's for 2 hours or for 6 hours, you got to give me a reason to log in because so far if I logged into Act 1 of Episode 2 and all we got was what we got for all of Act 1 for this episode, and I log into Episode 2, Act 1, and I get that first 3 weeks all at once, and not a whole lot happens, still not compelling me to keep coming back in for that next act. There needs to be things that actually happen. So I'm with you. It's like the pacing, I need some events to actually happen. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that. Yeah. No, it's like, yeah, it's like if I tried to write a script, I'm sure it would look like a kindergartner tried to write it. But as you said, if I'm not having a great experience with what I am playing, then there is still something that needs worked on. That's probably fair.
indeed.
Indeed. Uh, you seen any movies recently? I've seen a couple.
Movies?
Yeah, totally separate subject now because I just saw Twisters. I'm gonna see Deadpool. Like, I've been
You see
trying
a
to.
lot of movies, man.
I have a
I
movie
don't really have
theater like
time for
across
movies.
the street from my house, so it's like I I
Mm.
I hadn't seen movies like COVID and everything else, and then I did not try Concord, but I know Travis did actually. He actually did the
I
preview on
did, yeah.
IGN. Yep.
It's actually a review in progress.
Okay.
So, I'm officially reviewing that game, and I played a bunch of it both of the weekends, and I think it's got some cool potential. I like the gunplay. I actually think the maps are better than people are giving them credit for. Um,
Do you
the world
feel it
building
should be
slash
a
characters are sweet.
Do you feel it should be a
Yeah.
paid experience or a free experience? And do you feel it should be delayed? That's the two pieces of
I
feedback
think
I saw.
I think people will they'll be split, right? Some people will be like, "Why is this game paid when so many of your peers aren't?" And I think other people will be like, "Thank God this game is paid. That way I can not have to deal with all the free to play bullshit," right? So I don't really think it matters there. Everybody's got to do their own business. But I don't think it really needs a delay either because we haven't seen what all of the content is. They've locked some of the game modes away from us during the betas. So my main concern is that it doesn't do anything new. It copies Overwatch to a T. I think the shooting is better than Overwatch, which is a testament to the pedigree of the studio, which includes Bungie employees,
Yeah.
former Bungie employees, by the way. But I think the main problem is just like they followed Overwatch's model like down to the finest detail, like a story told over time that has absolutely no in-game relationship where the characters are just fighting each other without explanation. The lovable characters that you play as. I mean, it is very much a hero shooter that plays it very close to the established genre, and I think that is kind of a problem. You know, I get excited about games that innovate and do new things. I don't know that this one has shown me that they plan on doing that yet, but it is good. What I've played has been very fun.
Yeah, if you're trying to tell a story for your characters, but you have no PvE elements in your game at all, it does feel like that's only going to go so far. And if they're committing to like a weekly cinematic every time you log in, that's a lot. I mean, you do 52 little stories like that. When we had the interview with the cinematics director, I know that's not nothing. And then the cinematics that we do get from Overwatch every so often are legitimately very well done, but they are very sparse. Like, you don't get one very often, whether it's a new character or history on a character. Those things are, I don't know if they're 6 months apart, but it feels like the Overwatch cinematics we do get, like on YouTube and stuff, I'll see them pop in. They don't come up very often. So doing these little weekly snippets, I'm curious. I just don't know how it's going to land. I know the player population on Steam was really small. Marvel's Rivals beat it by like 25x. I mean, and that had its little free kind of closed demo, I think. I'll be curious because I mean, from what I saw, the animation was well done. I've heard the gameplay's pretty good for a PvP arena thing. It does feel a lot like Overwatch, so I don't know if it's going to bring me that much in. Do I really just like log in for the cinematics and just check it out for that even? I don't think it's worth my $40 for that, but I am a little curious because I mean I kind of enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy vibe that it gave off because the characters were that one cinematic we got were legitimately like very well animated and well done. I just don't know if I'm compelled to check it out at all. That's all. I'm
My
cu-
review in progress describes the game as what you'd get if you took a copy of Overwatch off of a GameStop shelf and rubbed it under Peter Quill's armpit.
that is quite an image there, sir.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, what else? Trying to think of anything really else. I was like, yeah, I'm playing some stuff I can't talk about, playing some stuff I can. Little First Ascendant, Little Once Human. I hope Destiny delivers me something at least a little more meaty next week. And then the week after that, we actually have your wedding. I know Cog and I will be back because we both get back Wednesday. I'm assuming you're going
I
to be
won't be
off.
on the
I'm
show.
assuming
Yeah,
you're going to be
I'll be
off
off.
for that episode. So
Yeah, I will be
take
off for that episode.
take your time and we'll
I'll be
hold
hanging
down the
out with
fort for you.
Ains and some other people that are
Yeah.
staying in San Francisco. That'll be
But
fun.
yeah, so next week we should all three be here. get the end of Act 2 discussed and see if anything else is exciting going on for the end of July. That'll probably be like, what, August 1st, technically, or something like that for a
Hmm.
calendar. And then we will get to witness this man get married
I'm
to.
gonna force you to watch me touch lips. You know, I'm gonna put you in one of those chairs that forces your eyes open, and you're like, you know, buckled in
Did
and
you
all
let
that.
your wedding venue know you're gonna have all of these people strapped into
Yeah,
chairs to make sure they don't call the
I've
cops on you?
I
This
I
is
I made it explicit to them that that's the only way anybody that's attending would consent to watching that. I was
well,
like,
I will see you at
they
the
they're
reception.
they're they're not gonna go gentle into this good night.
I
They're
was like, I
gonna,
will see you at the reception at the bar. We will be skipping the
yeah,
ceremony, and we will check out the venue without you there before the chairs arrive.
that's right.
Seems safer that way. I know this is a shorter episode, guys, but I'm not trying to stretch it any longer than it has to be. I feel like we kind of ragged on Destiny pretty hard, covered a couple of other games, but it's just a weird time in this seasonal model to see where things land and go and what content we get. It feels like Act 3 needs to put some extra work in.
Needs
Need
to deliver, man.
it
They gotta
needs
get
to
there's
yeah.
a whole lot of preface in Act 1 and 2.
Yeah, this is a very long prologue to a very short book.
Still haven't met the bad guy, just to be
No, I
clear.
know, like,
Yeah,
at some point normally in a book, like, somewhere in the middle chapters, you at least
yeah.
get introduced to the person. Maybe you don't
The
have a
the
lot of
the
interaction.
the hero's journey, I'm pretty sure the inciting incident's supposed to be pretty close to the beginning, somewhere in Act 1, it feels like. We still
That's
don't have our
yeah,
inciting incident, really.
that's where I'm kinda with you as well, is, like, the inciting there has been nothing that exciting yet. I haven't had that
Yeah,
much of a moment because you had the Saint kind of having his little takeover bit, but it still hasn't felt like much. We need more. So I'm hoping in Act 3 and in future episodes, we got to get some more activity in the story. We got to get some more incidents happening. Seems like needed to keep me
indeed.
coming back in. So, well, I'm going to enjoy a movie very soon. I'm going to see my wife perform on stage this weekend, which should be fun, and then I get to see you in a wedding very soon. So, quite a few cool things going on.
Hell yeah.
All right, everybody. Cog should be back next week. Act 2 should wrap up next week, so we should have an interesting discussion. But for now, thank you guys for checking out this episode. A little bit shorter, but still, it was a good time hanging out with you, Travis. And I'll let you get back to all of your wedding planning and Earth Defense Force 6 for another 70 hours. I am sorry, I think.
No! Yeah. I mean, look, I'm having fun, but yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you ever wanted to grind out a game, there's a couple grindy games I can talk about. Earth Defense Force, First Ascendant. We got some grinds for you. And then Destiny. It's got some grinds in there too, whether you wanted them or
Indeed.
not. But I think you did want them. All right,
Whether
everybody.
we wanted it or not.
We've entered
Sorry.
we've entered a war with the Cabal on Mars. Uh well, thank you guys. Show's been fun. Chat's been good. And Travis, for this episode, it has been
The
the last
last
word.
word.